My name is Cody Lawson, and I'm here to give you a presentation on diagnostic software. First up is Hirons Boot CD. Hirons has an online and offline environment that have the same menus though. The CD includes partition tools, backup tools, password and registry tools, hard disk tools, testing tools, mini Windows XP, disk tools, drivers tools, internet tools, recovery tools, system info tools, burning tools, and antivirus removal tools. This is the online environment of Hirons. Then I got a video for the menu when you boot Hirons.
Whether you can boot from your hard drive, depending obviously on what version of Windows you've got. You also have mini Windows XP, which we'll boot up and show you in a minute. That's absolutely fantastic for booting a machine that won't boot up and recovering files, data, etc., editing the registry, whatever, and removing viruses as well. You've got a whole list of DOS programs that it can boot into. It can boot into a Linux-based rescue environment, which is part of Magic 6.7, but it also includes a ton of tools that are not included with Parted Magic as standard. And then you've got a whole ton of other boot-up options, including an offline Windows NT password changer. You've also got more, you've got some custom stuff. You've got a whole, you can boot onto the master boot array, you can do a whole ton of stuff. But we'll perhaps cover that in future videos. For now, I'm going to assume that you want to boot into the mini.
Here's a picture of the Hirons offline environment booted into mini Windows XP. Then we have MS config. The tabs are General, Boot, Service, Startup, and Tools. The General tab has Normal Startup, Diagnostic Startup, and Selective Startup. The Normal Startup on the General tab is the default startup. It allows Windows to load and run all the drivers, services, and programs that typically load and run as startup. The Diagnostic Startup tells Windows to load drivers and services needed to get the desktop. Any non-essential services and drivers are not loaded, and no startup services are running. Diagnostic startup is often the fastest way to rule out startup problems arising from missing, corrupt, or improperly configured essential services or drivers. The diagnostic startup is functionally equivalent to selective startup with all the options disabled. The selective startup tab on General tab allows you to selectively enable and disable various phases of the startup process. It is useful mainly in determining which phase of the startup process is loading the driver or service causing problems. Selective startup has its own subcategories. System.ini file is useful in helping to determine if any older startup application or service is causing problems. The win file is useful in determining if any older startup application or service is causing problems. Load startup items is useful in determining if one of the programs Windows starts during the boot process is causing the problems. Launch system restore launches the system restore utility. Selective startup, the use original boot and use modified boot. These buttons allow you to toggle between the original boot tab or of MS config. This is useful in determining if the startup problem is related to the boot and for toggling back and forth between various boot configurations during troubleshooting. Expand file launches a dialog that allows you to expand a file from the Windows installation disk. Its main use is to restore files that have been deleted or corrupted. That's a picture of the General tab of MS config. Then we have the Boot tab. The boot file controls how Windows XP boots up. This tab provides a GUI for editing the boot file. The top portion of this window shows the text of the boot file with the correct current operating system highlighted. All changes made in this pane will affect the operating system highlighted. The bottom portion of this pane is where all the configuration changes to the boot can be made. Check all boot paths. Checks the boot paths for all operating systems listed in the boot to ensure they point to a valid operating system. Set as default makes the currently selected operating system the default operating system to load at boot time. Move up moves the currently selected operating system up in the list of available operating systems. Move down moves the currently selected operating system down in the list. Boot options. This section allows you to select various boot options for the currently selected operating system. Safe boot tells Windows to boot into safe mode. Safe mode has its own subcategories. Minimal tells the system to boot into normal safe mode. Network tells the system to boot into safe mode with networking support. DS repair repairs Active Directory controllers. Minimal alternate shell tells Windows to boot into safe mode with command prompt. No GUI boot tells Windows to not use the splash screen at startup. Boot log tells Windows to log everything it does during the boot process to the C Windows ntb bootlog.txt file. Base video forces Windows to use the VGA driver for video instead of whatever enhanced driver is installed on the system. SOS tells Windows to display the drivers it is loading as it loads them, also forces Windows to check the file system during the boot for problems. Advanced options allow you to set various advanced boot options for Windows. Timeout allows you to set the timeout in seconds that Windows will wait before booting the default entry in the boot. That's a picture of the boot tab. Services tab. The Services tab allows you to selectively enable and disable the various services that Windows provides. Services are specialized applications that provide important functionality for the Windows operating system. Services generally load before you log into the Windows desktop so they can be a source of potential problems that may prevent you from being able to log on. Has a complete list of available services for the system to display. This list of services contains all the services available, whether or not they are running. They are broken down by service name, the manufacturer of the service, and the status of the service. Hide all Microsoft services. Allows you to hide all the Microsoft provided services. This allows you to quickly disable all third-party services without affecting the Microsoft services. Enable all enables all the very visible services. Disable all disables all of them. That's a picture of the Services tab. The Startup tab contains a list of all the programs that automatically run whenever you log into the computer. It allows you to selectively enable and disable individual items which can be useful in tracking down problems that occurred after you log in. Has a complete list of startup items that run whenever you log into the system. They are broken down by the name of the startup item, the command which implements this startup item, and the location the startup item is run from. Enable all enables all the items at once. Disable all disables all the items. This is a picture of the Startup tab. Tools tab has a complete list of Windows tools that are broken down by tool name, description, and command. Launch lets you launch whatever tool you have highlighted. This is a picture of the Tools tab. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.